One of the things that Chipotle's been so successful in doing is, going back to the early part of 2013, they said that they're going to remove GMOs from all of their products in their food and sell that. And they've benefited from that in the last couple of years. As you can see, the sales of non-GMO products have soared. You basically label something non-GMO or put that non-GMO product with a little butterfly sticker on a bag of chips in the grocery store, and it'll fly off the shelf. So they benefited from this, and they benefited from Chipotle's management team saying, we're going to remove GMOs, and I'll show you how they benefited from that in a second. But and so what they've done, as you can see, these advertisements, you know, they're out there bashing the competition, saying that everybody's food is bad. You don't go anyplace else other than Chipotle, because it's the only place you're going to get good food. And more importantly, it's the only GMO-free restaurant that you can go to get products that are GMO-free. Another advertisement is a farewell to GMOs, and GM over it is another one where they actually, you know, took G and M and O off of their menu boards. I mean, they really went overboard with this whole non-GMO. And the last one there is the food with integrity. That's the mantra that we've all seen for years and years and years. And so they're out there claiming this and bashing the competition. And so my question, or what I've been struggling with here, is a lot of the claims that Chipotle makes are just not correct. So one of the things that they like to boast is that their meat is antibiotic free, which suggests that meat ingested elsewhere may actually include antibiotics. Well, if you dig deep into what the FDA says about antibiotics, right, it requires all animals to go through a withdrawal period before entering the food supply. So, you know, the chicken at McDonald's is no different than the chicken at Chipotle. It doesn't have antibiotics in it. So Chipotle is selling, right, they're selling fear that you're buying this, or you're buying a product that you can get, essentially you can get it elsewhere. The other part is this whole issue of GMOs, and I'm going to go through that. Chipotle, I think, is claiming that as their own, as they're this, you know, GMO-free restaurant, when in actuality, when you look at, you know, the gold standard for who determines what GMO is or what non-GMO is in a product, called the non-GMO project, there's not a single restaurant company that they've certified as non-GMO, even Chipotle. But yet Chipotle lays these claims that we're a GMO-free restaurant. So the debate is around basically the protein that you consume in your burrito. So if you get a beef burrito, everything else in it might be GMO-free, except for the beef, because, as we said here, because of the prevalence of GMOs in a number of important feed crops, most grains used as animal feed in the U.S. are genetically modified. So essentially, everything you eat has GMOs in it at Chipotle. You can't buy a burrito with not having GMOs in it. Yet they claim, again, right, that everything they serve is non-GMO. But it's physically impossible for them to serve food in their stores that's GMO-free, because it's in the supply chain. It's in the beef that we eat. So there's a loophole that they can get around by making this claim that, you know, we won't spend too much time talking about it, but they're not doing anything wrong. It's not illegal for them to say this. And essentially what Chipotle has done is they've attacked the entire supply chain, from ingredients. Not only were they attacking McDonald's and Wendy's and Burger King, but now they're attacking the people that put ingredients into those burgers and into everything else. So this has really aggravated a lot of people. And there's a lot of, you know, people who now want to point out the hypocrisy of Chipotle, because they're saying one thing and they're delivering another, but they're also saying and making everybody else look bad, right, when they're no different, frankly. People love Chipotle. Wall Street analysts, my competitors, love Chipotle. You know, it's a very popular company. You know, it's still a very popular company. It's a good company, but, you know, for whatever reason, they want to believe what management says, and I tend to not believe what they're saying. So the yellow bars there are what the consensus thinks the growth rate for the company is going to look like. So you can see in the third quarter, which just ended, their sales have been going down. And now it's this V-shaped recovery where they're just going to come right back, right? So what we know today is foodborne illness, 4 foodborne illnesses, right? So I'm from California to New York as of last Friday. And now they've got a marketing problem. So are the numbers going to snap back like the yellow bars and consensus thinks, or are they going to go down and not meet consensus, which means the stock's going to go down, which means I think the stocks are short. So the blue lines are kind of my estimates, if you will, on what I think is going to happen, which are very different than consensus. You can see in 2014, they raised their prices on average 6%. And if you go back to in the first quarter of 14 traffic, so that's the number of people that were in, was up 13%, right? And then the consumers are growing by 13%, and the company decides we're going to raise prices 6%. Because we're so popular and people love us, we can charge more for our products. This is a matrix that I put together for all the companies that I follow, determining what the upside or downside is. And given everything that I've talked about and what I think the risks are, obviously I see no upside and a lot of downside.
Where did you get the facts that support your premise of the meat being sold to McDonald's and Chipotle is the same? Are the cows, the cattle, are they being fed the specific GMO food in both industries, McDonald's and Chipotle?
Yeah. So there are very few companies that process cows in the country, right? And to the size that Chipotle is and the size McDonald's is, there's 2 or 3 companies in the country that can do that.
All right. I was under the impression that Chipotle had their own private farms that they...
Guess what?
Yeah.
Guess what? You know, I'm going to really bash Chipotle, but they've done a really good job at brainwashing you and thinking that they're serving a product that's vastly different than anybody else. And by the way, McDonald's, if they wanted to, with a few tweaks, and wouldn't take much,
right? Yeah,
they could make the same claim that their burgers are non-GMO. McDonald's bought this company when it was 10 stores, grew to 50. And from 10 to 50, they had to develop a supply chain. So Chipotle has McDonald's supply chain. Right? So, I mean, there's some differences, obviously, but, you know, you've got to... So they've done a great job marketing.
It wouldn't bother me, the whole GMO thing, but going to the integrity part, then you kind of question what else is Chipotle lying about, and I think that's the bigger aspect to look at, especially like my age group. I don't think people really focus as much on the GMO. You know, I don't go to Chipotle because it's GMO free, but then I look at what else are they lying to me about if that question arises.
That's perfect, because that's, you know, so when a company loses its trust, right, however they lose it, right, so, you know, I don't really care about GMOs either, and I don't go to Chipotle because it's GMO free, but if they're not being honest with their consumer, I agree with you. What else are they not telling you, right? And, you know, this is way too deep in the woods for Chipotle for you guys to understand, but every company puts out these documents at the end of the year called a 10K, right? It's the big annual filing. They put all their financial information in it. And in this past year, Chipotle changed the definition of their suppliers from sustainable, for produce suppliers, from sustainable to ethically grown or something. So now fast forward to 9 months later, or 11 months later, they've had 4 food-borne illness outbreaks. Chipotle has. I don't know a single, I've been following the restaurant industry for 20 years, I don't know a single company that's had 4 in 1 year. 4. So I'd argue that they changed their suppliers in the way they define their suppliers. And now look what it's done. I can't, again, prove that causation, but I'm going to say that it is directly impacted.
I just have a question about the fundamental definition of non-GMO. So there has to be no genetically modified products in the entire supply chain, because the beef or the poultry itself isn't genetically modified. It's not a modified organism.
It's the food they ate.
Right, but I, as a consumer, I'm not consuming any GMOs when I eat that meat. As far as we can see, there are no effects on the beef itself from eating GMO products, aside from, say, with the antibiotic thing, that's a clear effect. But for the most part, I'm not going to have an effect on my body myself if the beef ate, you know.
This gets back to the science, right? It's not clear as to the impact that that animal has from eating GMOs, you know, in its feed, and it's grown up from 0 to 3 years or whatever it is before they kill it, right? So it's been fed GMOs all its life before it comes to you. So, but the science, I mean, this is the debate, right? So this gets back to Chipotle selling fear, right? So they're telling you that we're a restaurant that's selling you this product that doesn't have GMOs and appealing to the fear that maybe not you, but some people have about consuming Roundup, essentially, right? And so, you know, they're selling from selling integrity to fear, and they benefited from selling fear.
Hypothetically, how would Chipotle recover from, if you were the marketer for this, what would you do, hypothetically?
That's a really good question. I don't know, frankly, but they've got to, you know, the first thing they've got to do, right, is admit they have a problem, and how they come back from saying that we're the only non-GMO restaurant to, you know, being a GMO restaurant again. They've got a real problem on their hands, you know, and they might, you know, again, the court might speak, right? The court cases might say one thing and force them to do something. And then the court of public opinion could force them to do something as well. And if, you know, this gains momentum and they keep losing consumers, right? Go back to those traffic charts, right? So if those numbers go negative and they go negative for an extended period of time, then they're going to have to address the issue that they have, and, you know, how do they win back the trust of the consumer? And I can tell you, it's going to be a long road for them to figure that one out, and it's not going to happen overnight.
You said it was physically impossible to have a restaurant like this, a fast food chain, that actually doesn't produce GMO food. So, is there a way for a restaurant to have their own cattle like this that's entirely non-GMO? Is that possible? So, could they change their product like that?
Let me just clarify that a little bit. It's physically impossible for a restaurant the size of Chipotle. Right. So if I wanted to open up my single store somewhere, yeah, I mean, I could have, you know, you'd be paying for it, but I could do it because you can get cattle that's completely non-GMO. But in terms of this size and purchasing power, I did the calculation a month ago. Chipotle can account for 8% of all, if you assume 100% of their dollars are non-GMO, which we know they're not, but if you assume 100% of them are non-GMO, Chipotle will account for 9% of all non-GMO products sold in the United States, retail and restaurants. And that's just, think about that. I mean, that's a massive number, right? And it's not, I don't think it's physically possible for the supply chain to give them product on that kind of scale.
Would it be a difficult process?
To get, I don't think it's possible today. I mean, it will be in 10 years, but today it's not. Because the supply chain, because there are companies that are figuring out today that they can charge 30% more for some ground beef if it's non-GMO than today. So if you're a farmer and you want to figure out a way you can raise prices, but it's more expensive, but you can also get better prices.
So you said shorting Chipotle would be the best idea. You think that's like a temporary thing, or?
So no, I don't, frankly. Because I think there are some, so if you think about the issues that we've talked about today, you know, where does it bottom? You know, sort of, if it goes away tomorrow, then I'll be wrong. If this stays above the fold, as they call it, right, front page news for a year, then Chipotle's going down. Because there will be less customers. And the line, they still might have a line of 30 people, but if the line was 50 a year ago, they've got a problem.